Hi, and welcome to Transparent with Tina, a holistic approach for mental, physical, and spiritual well being so you can become the best version of yourself. Hi, and welcome to Transparent with Tina. I am Tina Marks, your host. Today's guest is a global speaker, author, and creativity expert. He's spoken in over 80 countries, written the Idea Book series, and built his career around one powerful idea: curiosity drives creativity. He challenges how we think, how we innovate, and how we see the world. Get ready for fresh perspectives and big ideas. Welcome, Fredrik Heren.
Hey,
Is that how
thank you
you
so much.
is that how you pronounce your last name?
I'm totally fine with that. That sounds great.
So nice to meet you. You know what? And I really believe that everything happens in perfect timing. And I'm really excited to have this conversation with you because, I'm just going to start off by saying I was with a friend of mine last Friday night, and we were both saying to each other, we don't even know what we like to do for fun anymore because everything has been task after task, responsibility, work, everything else that we've just lost sight of, and that includes being creative. So if you don't know what you like to do for fun, you certainly don't know what like creative. And, there's creative types, and I've never considered myself one, but we're going to dive into all that. So let's start off with you've traveled to more than 70 countries studying creativity. What first sparked your obsession with the topic?
That's a good question, but I like to. It goes back all the way to my childhood, I think. My father was a very creative, he was a musician. He was a very creative person, and he could play, I don't know, 10 different instruments, but he was also a very creative musician. He would dress up in wigs on stage, and he'd just do anything for a laugh. And my mother was a teacher and passionate about learning. So if you combine the two, I guess you get me, someone passionate to learn about creativity.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. And it's funny, I was saying the other day, and I know a lot of people don't believe this, but they say you choose your parents. Like when you come into this world, you have a soul contract and you choose your parents. And I remember arguing with that for most of my life. And now looking back, I do see why I chose my father and my mother. So yeah, you're definitely a
Uh,
combination between those two. Um, so
Interesting.
so do you remember the moment when you realized creativity would become your life's work?
Well, for the longest time, I didn't. I think it was not going to be that at all because as I was growing up, my father was very creative, but he was a musician, and I suck at music. So my brother had perfect pitch, but I sucked at music. So for the longest time, I thought, oh, creativity is apparently important, but I don't know how to do this. Well,
Mm-hmm.
creativity in music.
Right.
So I thought, no, creativity is important, but I suck at it. It took me a long time to realize that there's many, many ways to be creative, and music is just one of them. And I would say it was when I was in university, I discovered the internet. And when, this is mid 90s, so I'm an old man. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I realized that, wait a minute, this internet is new. No one knows how to do it, which means there's no one who is an expert on it. Then no one can tell me I'm wrong. And so I went into the internet and I started an internet company and I became an internet expert it wasn't that difficult at the time. There were not that many internet experts. And after a few years of doing that, I realized I never really liked the internet. I liked the fact that it was new. And since
Mm.
2000, I said, you know what? I'm just going to study this thing that is new, regardless if it's internet or not internet or whatever. So I guess since 2000, I've been studying creativity.
Okay, so if somebody had never heard of you before, how would you describe exactly what you do?
It's very easy. I'm the creativity explorer. I define myself as the creativity explorer. It came actually from my son. He was asked to do a presentation in school. What does your parents do for a living? He was supposed to say, my father is a creativity expert. But he was 8, he screwed it up, and he said, my father is a creativity explorer. And I heard that, and I said to myself,
Oh,
this is so much better than an expert, because
yes.
an expert
Yes.
has all the answers. An explorer, per definition, doesn't have any answers, but an explorer has questions. And I know the definition of explore is to venture into unknown territory in order to learn more about something. So that's what I do. So to explain to people, I travel around the world and interview creative people for a living. I was in 19 countries last year alone. So, and I interview all kinds of creative people. I think 4 continents, like a chef, a tourist guide, a politician, anything, any human. I want to understand creativity through humanity, and I also want to understand humanity through creativity. Someone described me as an Anthony Bourdain of creativity. I think it's a beautiful description.
Oh, I think so too. And I like the word explorer a bit more than an expert too, because exploring doesn't have an ending, kind of, and
Yeah.
that goes hand in hand with your curiosity, because curiosity leads to the creativity. You often say that creativity is a choice, not a talent. Can you unpack that a little bit?
Because there's one of the most common questions I get is some people creative and are some people not? And I
Right.
think the question is fundamentally the base for the question is wrong. Yes, yeah, let's use music as an example.
Okay.
Some people have perfect pitch and some people don't. But that doesn't mean some people can be musicians and other people can't. Everyone can learn to become better at music, and everyone can learn to become better at anything creatively.
Right.
So, and the second thing is, if you, as soon as you say, are some people this and some people that, you put them into like categories and you also rank them. And creativity is not a competition. It's like the basic base for the question is fundamentally wrong. Creativity is about expressing who you are. And then the only question you should ask yourself is, am I more creative today than I was yesterday? That's the only one that
Mm.
matters.
Ooh, I like that. Yeah. Because when you were talking, I was thinking about like Picasso. He popped into my head, right?
Who?
The artist, Picasso.
Oh, yeah.
Like a lot of people would look and say, that looks like a 4-year-old drew that, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it's very true. So it's like the labels that we put on that, right? And like you said, it is just self-expression, because often you'll hear like, let's even go back to music. Oh, they're so talented. So
Mm.
not everybody is talented. That not everybody's talented enough to become a award-winning singer, right? But everybody does have creativity. So let's separate those two. So everybody has a talent, I think, somewhere. We just have to find what that is,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And and Mick Jagger is a great musician, but can he sing? That's a good question. But
Yeah.
he's a wonderful musician. And I don't know if
Performer.
he
He's a
exactly, yeah,
performer. He's a
performer. Sorry.
yeah.
And also it's just one of the aspects. Maybe I don't know how good he is at painting or in creativity. You can be creative in the way you parent, or you can be creative in the way you get to work. You can be creativity is a way to make your life better.
Yes,
That's
that just popped into my head. More mundane, because when you were talking, I was thinking to myself, because I love fashion and clothes. Okay. And there's a woman actually on Instagram that's her whole gig. Every day she piles on the jewelry. You've never seen so much jewelry in your life, and like rings everywhere. But it makes her, she says, it's like putting my armor on for the day. It's like her creativity. And I do believe what you wear puts you in a different mood. So if I'm wearing a suit as opposed to jeans and a t-shirt, it's going to make me feel a different way. It's like, how are you going to show up in the world? Basically, is what you're saying, through your creativity. How are you going to be creative so every day is not mundane? So it's a little bit different every day, right? So it's like a thought process. What's the one common myth about creativity that you think holds people back the most?
Oh, I think the most common one is probably that fear stops creativity.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not wrong, but I don't think I think it's the wrong approach again to creativity. Creativity should, as soon as there's fear, there's ego,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not fear that stops your creativity. It's ego that stops your creativity. So
Exactly.
you see the difference? The
Yeah.
the, the, the fear is the sneezing, but the ego is the cold. You need to focus on the right thing. So fear doesn't stop any creativity. Ego stops it by making you feel fear. So we should
Being judgmental. Yeah.
exactly, which means we shouldn't focus on getting rid of the fear. We should focus on getting rid of the ego.
Right. Well, I think they go hand in hand, to be honest with you. I think fear and ego do go hand in hand. And I think, yeah, if we stop judging ourselves and just letting it come out, because that's the first thing. I mean, I took a painting class not too long ago, and I remember like halfway through it, I'm going, oh, this is going to be awful. Well, and then I waited towards the end and I actually hung it up in my house. My friend who did it with me, she threw hers away.
Yeah.
So it really shows you who's harder on themselves. right? I mean, if I was really that hard on myself, I would have thrown mine away too. And I think that's an important point here too. I think that um, I think most of us just are not gentle enough with ourselves to become creative. And I think that society, being a hustle society, where, well, that's the other thing. You said you believe curiosity is more important than intelligence. Let's talk about that for a minute.
I I hope that I get to share because my job is to interview other creative people. So I hope I get to share some of the insights from the people I've met. So if that's okay with you, I'd
Oh,
like to share.
yeah, absolutely. Yes.
I was recently in Bhutan and I interviewed the former Minister of Tourism in Bhutan, just a random, I guess, random person in Bhutan. And I wanted to understand, from a Buddhist perspective, where in this Shangri-La kind of a country, how do they approach creativity?
Mm.
And he said, you Westerners, you approach creativity as some kind of a self-expression, like you're expressing who you are. You're creating something to the world. You're solving world problems. It's an outward movement. He said, none of that is wrong, but creativity is more than that. It's that there's an aspect that is the most important that you're missing. He said creativity is not an outward motion, it's an inward motion. Creativity, more than anything else, is a way to understand yourself.
Mm.
And this is profound because
Yes.
let's say for example that painting that you said. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
you went to a class to learn how to paint, and let's say at the end the painting did suck and your friend threw it away.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean that that was a wasted opportunity. She learned something about herself. Maybe she learned I can't paint. That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But when we look at it this way, we can't fail because the result was not the point of this exercise. Going
Yes.
there and painting was the exercise. And as long as you want to understand something more about who you truly are, you are not failing. And again, the ego is gone, and instead you're on a journey of self-discovery. And I would go so far to say that you have never, if you go and do a creative process where you did not learn anything about yourself, was it truly a creative project? Or were you just
Mm.
producing something? But if you did learn something about yourself, the end result is secondary. What you learned about it is primary. I'll give you a good example. I wrote a novel once. It's called The Invisible, came out on Penguin. It became #1 on Amazon in Singapore. Of all, not just in a subcategory, of all the books, 15 million books, I was #1. I beat Harry Potter, I beat the Bible, I beat all of them.
Wow.
Yeah, I know, it's amazing. That's a dream of every author. But then the sales just crashed because the book was out of stock for a week because they hadn't thought this was going to happen. So there was no books for a week, and then it dropped off the bestseller list and it never came back. Now I could say to myself, "Ah, Fredrik, no, look at that, you failed," or I could say I was #1.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't say either of those two, actually. I said I wrote a book about how I look at the world through a novel. And I learned so much about myself doing that. And then the book was so secondary. It was the writing process that was
Mm-hmm.
the most important part.
Mm-hmm. That's so true. I think that what holds us back too is I think we're so attached to the outcome.
Yes.
And if we're not attached to the outcome, we can see what more within ourselves and learn more about ourselves. But if we're so attached to the outcome, then that would stop the creative process, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
And I love the word. I love the word. It's another myth is that when they say that, oh, we shouldn't be afraid to fail. A lot of companies say about innovation. They say, oh, in this company we're not afraid to fail. Uh, Again, it's wrong. It's not of not being afraid of failing is not what makes creative people. It's the resilience. And the word resilience is a beautiful word. Do you know what the etymology is of the word resilience?
No.
What it literally means. Resilience, means back, silience means to
S-
bounce.
Oh,
So
interesting.
resilience means to bounce
Bounce
back,
back.
like a spring or
Yeah.
like a
Yeah.
ball, you're
Right.
bouncing back. So
Right.
again, it's not the failing. Creative people, they bounce back. When you go back to this book again, I could have told myself the story. Uh, oh, you could have had a bestseller and then it flopped because it was out of stock. Or I
Yeah.
could tell myself I reached #1,
Yeah.
right? And by
Yep.
telling me I reached number one, I got enough motivation to write my new book that just came out, right? Because I told myself that story. So
Right. It's all
failing,
your
we shouldn't be afraid of failing. We should focus on bouncing back from failure. That's the
Hey
key.
guys, okay, let's talk skincare. For most of my adult life, I had a hate relationship with my skin. I struggled with adult acne, discoloration, large pores, psoriasis, and fine lines. I swear, all that changed when I started using herbal face food. I mean, this stuff is powerful. We're talking the world's most potent antioxidant and anti blemish formula. And the serum is the number one anti aging serum in the world, made entirely from 100% botanical plants. No chemicals, no synthetics, 100% all natural. Whether you're dealing with fine lines, dark spots, sun damage, rosacea, psoriasis, melasma, or just want that all day healthy glow, Herbal Face Food has your skin covered. Literally. I've been using all their products for 3 years now, and let me tell you, it's like green juice for your face, only stronger. Remember, whatever you put on your skin goes in your body. So, this is a really important point here, seeing that it's 100% all natural. Give it a try. It's got a 100% money back guarantee, no questions asked. You can check them out at herbalfacefood.com. Use promo code TINA20 for 20% off your entire order. That's herbalfacefood.com because your skin deserves
That's
the
the key.
best. Exactly. And if you learn something from the process, is that failure? It's only
No, exactly.
failure if you don't learn something from it, right?
I, yeah, I interviewed a musician in Indonesia. He's a very famous musician, and but I mean, he's old. He's been doing it for decades. He does film music and what all kinds of. Even at his old age, of 65 plus something, I said, what? How do you? Because he's a composer, he's a musician, he's a producer. I said, how do you define yourself? And he said, I define myself as a student of music.
Yes.
And if you do that, you are always learning, you're always curious, you never fail because everything you do is about learning about music.
You know what? I'm so glad that you brought that up because I'm sure you've heard the expression that life is a classroom,
Hmm,
right?
exactly. The
And
world is a
if
classroom.
yeah, life is a classroom, and if we look at it like that, we are naturally going to look at it with more curiosity
Hmm.
and be able to be more creative. You know, going back to the hustle society, how we are here in where are you where are you?
I used to live in Asia for 20 years and then now I moved back to Sweden. I live on an island in the Stockholm archipelago.
Wow. Okay. So I don't know what it's like in Sweden. I've never even been to Sweden, but here it's a very hustle society. And, if you're not hustling all the time, if you're not working long hours, 7 days a week, it's frowned upon. And with having said that, that's how I used to be. And I just realized about a year or so ago that my nervous system was on fight or flight all the time. When you have a dysregulated nervous system like that, where on fight or flight, it's almost impossible to be creative because your body is always looking out for the danger. It's just trying to kind of stay alive. So, how can people train themselves to think more creatively in everyday life?
Well, first of all, you can actually be creative in a fight or flight situation. You look at animals, they can be very creative to survive, right? So
Mm.
I call this the Apollo 13 scenario. Like, shit, the oxygen tank exploded. We're in the middle of nowhere. There's a huge problem. We have to solve it, and we have to solve it quickly. And they did,
Oh,
right?
okay. Yeah.
But if you ask people, when do you, and I've asked 1 million people in 75 countries, where or when do you have your absolutely best ideas? It's about 5% who are what I call Apollo 13 personalities. Is I have great ideas when I'm under pressure, I need
Yeah.
deadlines,
Right.
I thrive on this. But it's 5%. 95% get their best ideas, and they can be they're called the four Bs. It's in bed in dreams or in meditation. So it's the bed, the bathroom, Archimedes sitting down in a bathtub.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's buses. So like when you're traveling, J.K. Rowling for sitting on a train, Harry Potter just dropped into her head.
Mm-hmm.
and in bars, and that's about 20%, which I get creative with other people. Let's have some wine and let's brainstorm. Those are only about
Mm.
20%.
Mm-hmm.
But the vast majority get them when they are totally relaxed,
Yes.
meditating,
Yes.
dreaming, and more importantly, the most beautiful ideas that mankind has ever come up with all come when we are the most relaxed. Always.
Exactly. And that's why a lot of these, I get a lot of downloads. In fact, I just did a reel yesterday or 2 days ago about it, is when I'm sleeping.
Yes.
And I've trained myself because I go, oh, I'll remember it in the morning, and I don't remember it in the morning. So I get up now and I actually write the thought down so I will remember it because it is very profound. Going back to when your mind is relaxed, yeah, because if your mind is going, first of all, you have like blinders on. That's what I think. It's like you miss opportunities because you're just so focused on the task at hand or what you're doing that your mind it can't be open, right? So how can people train themselves every day to think more creativity? So basically, I think what your answer is to be more quiet with themselves, to quiet the mind down. So
I
meditation, yeah.
Yeah, I interviewed a sculptor in Hong Kong, and he called it divine ideas and mortal ideas. And I think there's a deficit in the English language that you only have one word for idea. Because if you say, "Oh, I'm going to make pancakes today," or "This is how we're going to solve this business problem," uh, those ideas are totally different from the ideas that comes in dreams and meditation. Those
Mm,
which so he's a mortal idea is something that comes from your conscious mind. A divine idea is something that comes from your subconscious mind.
subconscious mind,
And the
yes.
only way to get those ideas is that your conscious mind is shutting up for a second,
Mm-hmm.
which it does when you meditate or
Yes.
when you sleep or when you walk in nature or something
Yes.
like. Yeah, and
Yes.
you can definitely get more divine ideas by putting yourself in that situation. I actually think I was on another podcast recently, and I said I'm going to rewrite the story. You know the turtle and the hare. I'm going
Yeah.
to rewrite that because we're teaching the wrong stories to our kids. We're teaching them that they should always constantly be hustling slowly, like work, work, work all the time, never rest, right? So in my
Right.
new story, the hare is going to run for a while, and then it's going to lie down and sleep, and he's going to wake up and realize that there's an amazing shortcut in the forest that he didn't think of. And he's going to wake up and take the shortcut, and he's going to beat the hare. I mean, he's going to beat the turtle,
Right, because he
right?
took the time to be creative and think
Yes,
outside of the box. I love
yes.
that.
But it doesn't mean that hustle is wrong. One of the people in the book I interview is an Afghan artist. Her Sugra is her name. She's from Afghanistan, and she paints like they used to paint when Afghan was a cultural superpower hundreds of years ago. So what she does is first she goes out into nature and finds the gemstones, and then she grinds them down and makes her own paint. It takes weeks. Then
Wow.
she cuts down a tree and makes her own paper. Then she makes her own brush. By apparently the best hair is the neck of a cat. And then she cuts that off, binds it to a wooden stick, and makes her painting her brush. And what she told me is it takes months to do this. So when I have an idea for a painting, it takes months before I can actually start putting the first dot of paint on the piece of paper I've made. While you guys, you order it on Amazon, same day delivery, and then you start to paint right away. You don't have any time to think anymore. But she said the key here is whatever I at the end start to paint is never what I thought I was going to paint because I've been
Mm.
thinking about it for so long before I start to paint.
Yes.
She calls this profound patience, which is the utter opposite of Mark Zuckerberg, go fast and break things. It
Yes.
doesn't mean Mark Zuckerberg is wrong. We should do that. We can do that. But we also need this other tool of profound patience where we just say,
Yes.
you know what? I'm just going to slow this creative process way down and see what happens.
Right, right. It's getting to our inner being is what it is, as
Hmm.
opposed to being like robotic and just not thinking
Yeah.
outside the box. How has traveling the world changed the way you think about creativity?
I've realized that there are so many different kinds of creativity and there's so many different kinds of creative processes. Basically, there are 8+ billion ways to be creative. And there's more than that because every person can be creative in many different ways. So I
Hmm.
used to look at it as one thing. Now I look at it as an infinite kaleidoscope. That's how I look at it. At the same time, I realized that we're so similar in how we approach life and how we use creativity. So I I like to say now when someone asks me to define creativity, I say creativity is what makes us human. So
Hmm.
that became my answer. It's very deep and very profound, but it's the best answer I have because creativity, first of all, we're the most creative animal, but second by far. But second of all, we never feel more alive than when we have a really good idea.
Hmm. Yes. Yes.
I had a friend, I have a friend, his name is Johan, and he asked me once, Fredrik, what's the most amazing human feeling? And I said, it's love. He goes, yes, absolutely, it's love. But what's the second most amazing human feeling? And I said, what do you mean? And he said, it's creativity. It's having a really good idea
Great idea. Yes.
or seeing a really good idea come true. Nothing makes us happier than that except being in love. So it's the second most
Mhm.
amazing human feeling. Why are we not spending more time exploring how to get to that position?
Yes, exactly. Why, yeah, why don't we?
Because because it we haven't been encouraged to.
Encouraged to.
We haven't been encouraged to do that. And I also
Why do you
think that
think that is?
a lot of people blame others for it. They say, I'm not creative because of school, because of my parents, because of my job, because of my boss. I don't. I said, creativity is your own responsibility. You can't, it's your job to make sure you're doing enough to develop your creativity.
Right.
And if you don't think you're creative enough, you should say, why am I not doing more to develop my creativity? And everyone should do that.
Okay, so where would somebody start? They have not been creative their whole life. They've just, been working, raising a family, doing, responsible tasks. Where does somebody start? So one, meditation,
Yes.
and then,
But first of all, to understand your own creative process. That's the most important thing.
okay,
Most people don't even know their own creative process. So start by doing that. Say, what's the best idea I've ever had in my life? What's the worst idea? When do I have good ideas? When do I not feel good? When do I not have good ideas? What stresses me out? What inspires me? And so on. And you can feed all of that into ChatGPT now and ask it to summarize it for you in a way that makes like a creativity report back to you. And there you go. Because sometimes it's good to get a second, like it's hard to cut your own hair. So it's hard for some people to, but if you describe everything to ChatGPT, ask it to summarize it, then you'll get some good insights back. And then what do you do? Then you start to build your life around that. I'll give you one or
give me
two extreme
examples.
examples if
Yeah,
you
yeah,
want.
yeah. Please.
So first of all, my creative process is I need to be inspired by different kinds of people. I hate procedure. I hate doing same things over and over. I hate sitting in an office. So that's why I travel around the world for 6 hours, 6 to 8 months per year. Like I said, 19 countries last year. Uh, but then the other half, I sit on my island with my family and my dog, and I just sit there and reflect on all the interesting people that I met. Some people
Mm,
might say, "Oh, it sounds so boring to live on an island with like no neighbors," and some people might say, "Oh, I would never like to travel that much." But for me, it's perfect, just for
yes,
me.
yes, yes. And we are the same because that's why I do this podcast. I
Hmm.
love talking to new people. I learn new information and it lights me up. This year in 2026, I said, I'm not doing anything anymore that doesn't light me up. So, my doctor says that we don't die from old age, we die from inflammation. And I couldn't agree more. When I found him a couple of years ago, I was not in great shape. I had a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression, and he found out it was all related to my gut. Did you know that 90% of your dopamine and 90% of your serotonin are made in your gut? Okay. So I have been on all of his products ever since that day. But the ones that I want to talk to you about are the alkalizers. He's got one for coffee and he's got one for alcohol. What do? They make the beverage from acidic to alkaline, which is so important because if your body is too acidic, it is a breeding ground for disease. So you want to keep your body in an alkaline balance. So with the coffee, it comes either for black coffee or it comes flavored as a creamer. I love the flavored ones. Vanilla is my favorite, but I also love the hazelnut. They're all delicious. One scoop, and it does not break your fast for one. It changes your body, your coffee from acidic to alkaline, which you don't have to feel guilty about drinking coffee anymore. And the one for alcohol does the same thing. 5 drops into any alcoholic beverage, and it will make it from acidic to alkaline, meaning no hangover. It doesn't change the taste, it doesn't change the color, and best of all, it doesn't change the buzz. You can still drink and enjoy yourself, all the while knowing that you're not causing inflammation in your body. So go to www.getoffyouracid.com and use the promo code Tina Marks. Don't light me up. 20.
Exactly. Oh, but there's an interesting insight. One of the people I interviewed recently he's the head of business development in a resort in the Maldives. And his job is to travel around the world and look at cool hotel concepts. And he said, he gave me an example. I go around and I see in a bar in Los Angeles, and I see a drink that's like they lit it on fire and something. Oh, I said, oh, that's a cool idea. And then I take this picture and I send it back to my team to inspire them. But I realized I was sending them too many pictures. They get overwhelmed by inspiration because people think that inspiration is the key to creativity. It's not. He called it creative respiration. Do you know what respiration is? It's what happened after inspiration. Inspiration means to breathe in. That's the act of breathing in, respirate. I mean, inspire, right? Inspire means to breathe in. Perspire
Okay.
means to breathe out. That's the meaning of the word. It means to breathe in. So when
Okay.
we are inspired, we are literally breathing in new energy into ourselves. But the respiration is what happens in your lungs when your lungs turn the oxygen into meaningful things that the body can use. So creative respiration is much more important than creative inspiration. So
Oh, that's very interesting.
you
Okay.
should ask yourself, you shouldn't ask yourself what inspires me. You should ask yourself, what inspires me in a way that makes me take action?
Yes. Yes. Exactly. Well, that's kind of my next question. How do you personally deal with self-doubt or creativity blocks?
I have a beautiful story, my favorite story. I went and I interviewed a Thai origami artist. Her name is Kai, and I met her in Bangkok. And we were starting to, and for some reason, we started talking about creative blocks. And I said to her, so what do you do if you have a creative block? And she just smiled. And she said, then I go to Starbucks. I said, okay, good. And then what do you do? And she looked at me and she said, I drink my coffee. Yeah, yeah, okay. But then what are you thinking of the project? Like, what are you doing? I finish my coffee. And I realized that this woman had no understanding of creative anxiety. It didn't exist in her
Of
life.
what?
Creative anxiety. It
Creative
didn't
anxiety.
it
Yeah,
didn't exist for her.
she wasn't grasping for it. She wasn't
She
she wasn't
no,
having anxiety because she was feeling like she was just waiting for it to return.
and exactly. So if she got stuck, she just left her studio, went out and did something else. She went to Starbucks and continued to enjoy her life. And she
Right.
called that an idea nap, which is beautiful. It's
Oh, I
like a
love that.
It's like a power nap. So
Yes.
the next time you get stuck, all you have to say is, looks like I'm stuck. I'm going to have an idea nap. And then you go and do something else, but without the creative anxiety. Since I met her, I don't have creative anxiety anymore. There's something we've added in our culture. Oh, we need to, if we have writer's block, we need to feel bad about it. No, we don't. That's just a choice. You can decide
Exactly.
to just say, okay, apparently I'm stuck. I'm going to do something else for a while, and then I'm going to go back and continue to work on my project without the anxiety.
Right. And I was talking I think it was on my last podcast about to judge kind of where you are internally. If you have an idea and you feel restricted, or do you feel expansive? So when you're in creativity, you're going to feel very expansive. And
Mm.
if you listen to your body, so sometimes you'll be like, am I having a creativity block, or am I, having self-doubt or whatever? Just check in with your body. And if your body feels restricted, then don't force it. Because I think anything that comes out of force is usually pretty convoluted and it's not really truly authentic.
Yes, but it's also important to understand creativity is a paradox. So you could say that, for example, we should be totally relaxed, or we need a deadline like Apollo 13. Or we can say that we should have no anxiety, or we could say anxiety triggers my creativity. Some people will say anxiety triggers their creativity.
Right.
Then they should aim for anxiety. They should go for more anxiety
Right.
because again, it's a very personal process. So to understand your own creative process is the most important tip here.
Okay. So, what do most companies get wrong when they say they want innovation?
They uh, they are like parents who tell their kids that they shouldn't be so much on their phones, but the parents are still on their phones. So they talk about that they want creativity and innovation, but they're not backing it up. And then it becomes just like double standards and hypocrisy. So that and then people just say, oh, they don't mean it.
Right.
So and then people get sick of it and just don't do it.
So, how can leaders create environments where creativity actually thrives?
By doing creative things themselves. So
Mm.
even if that is, it could be the smallest thing. It could be moving the Monday meeting to a Tuesday and have a Tuesday meeting, or having the Monday morning in a cafe for once, or it can be the tiniest of things. It just do something. I was once doing a speech in Singapore. It was an innovation day, and it
Mhm.
was a government-owned company. It was 300 people in the audience, and the CEO goes up and starts reading from a piece of paper. And you could tell he did not read, he did not write this himself. He was reading a speech someone else had written for him. So
Okay.
it's like this. We are gathered here today to celebrate creativity and innovation because it's very important, blah blah blah.
Right.
And the
It was
energy just goes down, right?
flat. Yeah.
But then suddenly he looks up and he says, wait a minute, what am I doing? This is a creativity day, and I'm just reading a pre-prepared speech that clearly I did not write myself. And he
Right.
takes it, crumbles it, he throws it away. And I know this was not rehearsed, it was improvised because I was sitting next to the person who had written the speech, and he went, what's going to happen now? So he was like, totally. But then the guy says, you know what? I shouldn't, if this is about creativity, I shouldn't just read someone else's speech. Let me tell you a story. Let me tell you about the first boss I ever had at Changi Airport. And he starts telling this story, improvising. And the energy just changed in the room. And you could feel like, wow, if our CEO can improvise when giving a speech, I can improvise when I'm doing whatever
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So
Well,
lead by
it goes,
example.
so it goes so okay. So as you're telling me this story, I was thinking because I had a coaching call yesterday, and the client was saying, "Well, I'm going to have to study some scripts before I make my calls." I said, "Look over the scripts. Don't study the scripts. You know what you're talking about, okay? You're when you make a call to somebody that you don't know and you're trying to help them." Come from, I told her, I said, if somebody calls me and I can tell they're reading off a script, I'll just be honest, I'll hang up on them
Yeah.
because there's no authenticity there. This is
Yeah.
what draws us into the person. Probably even more than what you're saying is the feeling and the vibration that person when they're being authentic. Where
Yeah.
somebody could be the most intelligent person in the room. Maybe that's where that question I said intelligence and curiosity, because you could be the words that are coming out of your mouth could be the most intelligent words that I've ever heard. But if it's inauthentic, like you said, it's not going to land. Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So I mean, that's all about when you deliver, then it's all about being in the moment and feeling the audience and all of that. So yeah, walk the talk, eat your own dog food,
Yes.
put your money where your mouth is. For creativity, that's super important.
Is structure helpful or harmful for creativity, would you say?
Yes.
It is.
I mean, yes, to both of it depends so much.
Oh,
For
yes,
me,
and
it's
yes. It's
yes, as in
helpful
yes,
and
it's
harmful.
harmful,
Okay.
and yes, it totally depends on your personality, your creative process, and what you mean by structure. Bureaucracy kills creativity. Okay,
Mm.
I heard of a bank in Singapore. They had a rule for how long the socks should be in the company. Like, if you have rules on the length of the socks, people are not going to
Socks. What is
socks. Yes,
stocks?
no socks. The socks you're wearing to work, they
Oh,
have certain
okay.
lengths. So if you have rules down to the length of the socks you're wearing, you
Oh
have
my
so
gosh.
many rules. no one can be creative because they're constantly afraid they're going to break one of these stupid rules, right?
Yes,
Instead,
yes.
you should just have one rule, which is in this company we behave professionally and ethically. That's all you need, and then we will select socks that are appropriate, right? We don't have to tell me the length of my socks.
Right.
So bureaucracy kills creativity, first of all, because it limits people, and second of all, because it just kills their energy in a person to sit and do boring admin bureaucracy stuff. But some rules can actually trigger creativity. For example, I'll test it on you. I
Okay.
will limit your creativity now. First, I will not limit it. Say something funny. There's no limits here, right? You can say anything you want.
Oh God, you're putting me on the spot. Say
No,
something
exactly.
funny.
That's my point. It's very difficult.
Well,
You have no limits, and it's still super difficult to do it
yeah.
because there are no limits. Now I'm going to limit it way down. I'm going to say something funny about Donald Trump. It's way easier.
His hair.
Way, see? You could have said Donald Trump's
Ah.
hair the first time, but you
Oh,
did it.
I see. I get it. So you have too many choices. Your brain can't focus
Can't
in.
handle it.
Okay, so all right. So that's very good. So what's something that somebody that's trying to get in touch with their creativity, limit it, maybe take an idea and limit it down? I mean,
Mm. Yeah,
tell
you
me.
can do that. Yeah, exactly. So you can if that works for you, you can do that. You can say, uh, I once did a workshop for Absolute Vodka, and we were doing a workshop, and I said, imagine you have unlimited budget. You can do whatever you want. What would you do then? This is what during the heydays when Absolute Vodka was like ruling the liquor
Oh,
world,
right.
and and they just looked at me and said, and finally, someone said, "We basically have unlimited budget." They said, "We were thinking of putting an Absolute vodka bottle on the moon, and we didn't do it because lack of budget. We did it because we thought we might get negative PR because we were littering on the moon. That's why we didn't do it." And I said, so they could do anything they wanted and they were stuck. And then I said, okay, imagine you have no marketing budget at all. And suddenly their creativity exploded. I said, oh, we need to do partnerships and what could we do that? So limit if you're stuck creatively,
Ah,
try to create limits. But
right.
but on the other hand, again, creativity is a paradox. Creativity is unlimitless, right? There's infinite ways to do
Hey, real
things.
quick, let's talk about something we all deal with, but never really think about. Electromagnetic radiation. Yeah, EMF. It's everywhere from our phones, laptops, Wi Fi routers, even our smart fit fridges. And no, I'm not saying ditch your tech. I mean, who could? But I am saying you can protect yourself from unnecessary exposure with Aries Tech. Backed by peer reviewed studies and independent testing, Aries Tech makes compact, science backed EMF modulation devices that help reduce the effects of electromagnetic radiation on your body. Rather than blocking the EMFs, Aries Tech's products work with your own body's electromagnetic field to balance out the effect. Yes, you heard that right. Our body is made up of energy, and this works with your own energy to balance out the effects. I've got one around my neck, one on my phone, and one in my living room. And honestly, it gives me peace of mind knowing I'm doing something small that can make a big difference over time. So, whether you're working from home, gaming for hours, or just scrolling your feed in bed, protect your space. Check them out at ariestech.com and use the code TINA25 for 25% off your order. That's AIRES tech.com because your body deserves better.
So if you are stuck because of the limits if you feel stuck in a creative, maybe it's because you created too many limits. And you say, wait a minute, what if I take away these limits?
Yes. Yes. So you've just got to kind of have to play with it a
You can
little.
do both. Yeah, exactly.
So, what daily habits help you stay curious and inspired?
Well, the main one I would say is traveling, but I also do what you do. I get a lot of energy just like you so I interview roughly one person a day about creativity. That gives me
That
new
gives you the
energy and new
inspiration.
inspiration. Yeah, that's for sure.
Okay, if you had to live by one creativity rule for the rest of your life, what would it be?
I would say, well, be curious. You
Be
alluded to it earlier, but curiosity is the trigger of creativity, and creativity is what makes our lives better. So curiosity is key.
And I've heard that before because remember when I was in the beginning, I was saying that my friend and I were saying we don't know what we like to do for fun. I don't
Mm.
remember who told me, I don't know if it was a therapist or, but they said, start with what you're curious about or
Yeah.
think about what you love to do as a child.
Mm.
So it's still not moving me in the, I mean, I'm still kind of stuck because I'm like, well, I had a ton of animals. I remember that. Remember Dr. Dolittle, that movie?
Yeah.
I was Dr. Doodle. My dad had to build on an extra room for the house because I had so many animals. But I'm going, well, I don't want that many animals. But so I'm still in the process. Hey,
But
can
you
you tell us about your book series, the idea book series?
I rather not, because I just published a new book,
Oh,
which is called The World of Creativity. I much rather talk about that
oh,
book.
let's hear about that then. And
It just came out, and
the
it
world
consists
of, it's called I'm writing it
it's
down. The
called The
world.
World of Creativity, and the subtitle is A Journey Across 37 Countries to Discover the Secrets of Creative Minds. And the example from the woman in Thailand, the origami artist, is in there. So it's 37 chapters from 37 different countries of insights into creativity from creative people, all kinds of creative people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
perfect.
I even went to North Korea. What can we learn about creativity from the North Koreans? I went and I lived with a nomadic tribe in Mongolia. What can we learn about creativity from a nomadic tribe in Mongolia? It's that kind of a. I want to learn about creativity from the most. I want to explore creativity.
Right. Um, I'm just looking. I have a lot of questions and we don't have a lot of time. Let's see. What do you hope people do differently after hearing this conversation?
I hope they commit to. I hope they double down on their creative development, and I mean that regardless how creative they are. Sometimes I feel that the sad thing is not the uncreative people. It's sad that there are uncreative people in the world, but the saddest part is the creative people who are not doubling down on their creativity. Imagine if the 0.1% most creative people on the planet became twice as creative. Imagine how much better the world would be.
What do you think people are so afraid of? Doing it wrong? I mean, I'm thinking that, well, two things that popped into my head. One, when I hear the word creative, I hear that as a luxury. That's like I'm going to go paint or I'm going to go something like that. But now after talking to you, creative is in your daily habits. Going driving a different way, like I take the same way to the gym every day.
I'll
Maybe
give you a great example.
okay.
Remember, creativity is making is how we make our lives better. So
Yes.
if you look at it that way, why on earth would I not make my life better?
Yes.
So you remember COVID, right?
COVID.
Here, COVID.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, here comes a huge problem, hits them. Now, how do you approach COVID? This is what my family, because I lived in Singapore at the time, and Singapore was the second country to be first China and then Singapore. So
Yes.
already in March in 2020, we already were hit by COVID. And I sat my wife down and I said to her, because I'm a speaker who travels around the world at conferences and speaks. And I realized very quickly, okay, travel is going to die, conferences is going to die, my business is going to be dead for a while.
Hmm.
And I said to my wife, okay, when our children have children and their children asked our children, how was it during COVID, mama and papa? It would be like how we would ask our grandparents, how was World War II, right?
Hmm.
What do we want our children to answer?
Hmm.
And we said, we want our children to say, oh, COVID, that was the best time of my childhood. And then we said, okay, how do we build a life so that they will say that?
Hmm.
So both me and my wife stopped working and we pulled our kids out of school and we homeschooled them for 2 years. And we
Hmm.
traveled and we lived in Sweden on my island, on our island in the summer, and we lived in Singapore in the winter. And we just had fun with our kids. I call it pre-tire. Instead of retiring, I pre-tired. I said, you know what? I'm not going to retire at 65. I'm going to retire at 67, but I'm going to take 2 years off now while my kids are young so that I have 2 years with my kid because they were like 6, 8, and 10 then. When they are in this wonderful age, I'm just going to play with my kids. now, and then I will work later. I will not work less in my life. I'll just do it differently than every other person does.
Yes, yes.
Why would I retire and play golf with my old buddies when I can play golf with my kids? I'd rather do that when they're small. So we did that for 2 years. And
Yes,
that
yes.
is all because we said, how can we approach COVID in a way that makes our lives better? Instead
Change
of
of
saying, here's a problem, I'm just going to be depressed for a
a
while.
change of perspective.
Hmm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's funny because when COVID, I remember everybody was, oh my God. And they, this is going to sound wrong, but a lot of people gained a lot of weight. They gave them like a free pass to like eat. I don't know, by staying in your house, why, but that should show you something about yourself, right? But I remember going, it didn't bother me at all. I mean, I love my alone time. I love being in my house, and I wasn't afraid of it. Don't ask me why, but I wasn't afraid of it, and so it wasn't the worst time in my life. I know a lot of
No,
businesses
and that's
failed,
great.
lost the money, had to shut down and everything else. But yeah, I mean, I was very
Yeah, and
blessed.
I don't want to imply here that how you react to COVID it shows if you're creative or not. It's
Right?
not because
No.
no one can be creative all the time, right?
Right.
And no one should be creative all the time. It would be exhausting. We're not built that way. It's like
Right.
saying you should stay awake all the time. No, you have to sleep sometimes. So it's not about being creative all the time because then it becomes pressure, something we're
Yes.
forced to do. We should just aim to be a little bit more creative.
Yeah.
Let's aim for 5% more. That's all. But that will increase your quality of life by way more than 5%.
Maybe people could say too, hey, how could I do things a little differently today? It could
Exactly.
start being intentional about your day. That's what I'm doing.
Be-
I'm becoming
because most
very
people don't do
intentional.
it. Most
There,
people, you said robots. We need to stop saying robots because robots are getting smart now. We're
yeah,
we're even worse than we're like machines, not robots.
right.
Uh,
I
sometimes when
usually
I
use
speak,
that word. Yeah, I usually use that word.
Sometimes when I speak on creativity and everyone is super excited, and then it's lunch afterwards, and everyone goes out, and there's a long queue to the lunch buffet, and everyone is taking food from one side of the table, and then I go, I just take the plate and I go on the right side of the table because there's usually two spoons. I'm not blocking anyone on the left. I'm just going on the right where there's no one,
Mhm.
and I get my food in 1 minute while other people have to queue.
So what you're saying is people have become like cattle. I mean, they're just
Yeah, they're
following.
worse.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're
yeah,
they're worse than cattle. And they
yeah.
they're and I said, wait a minute, you just heard a speech about questioning things, and now you're queuing for 20
And you're
minutes.
all
And
standing in the same line when there's an
come
open.
on, like
Yeah.
turn your brain on.
Yes, yes. Well, listen, how do people how can they come and see you speak? I mean, do you have it like on a website, like your events or anything like that?
Well, almost all my speaking is corporate, so they're usually
That's what
not
I was thinking.
open.
Okay.
Yeah, so they unfortunately, but Google my name or Google the Creativity Explorer, and you'll find me on LinkedIn. And I have a few speeches online that people can watch if they want, and
Okay.
yeah, and
And
I'm quite active on LinkedIn
LinkedIn, and it's under Fredrik, Fredrik Heren, Haren.
or
And
just the
your book,
Creativity Explorer,
the I'm sorry, what? The
the Creativity
Creativity
Explorer.
Explorer. Okay. And then your book is called The World of Creativity, A Journey Across 37 Countries. Is that what it says?
Correct.
Okay. And that you can get on
Oh, it's everywhere. It's published by Wiley, so it's everywhere.
by who?
Wiley.
Oh, okay, perfect. Well, I love this conversation, and like I said, it was so timely because I'm in the process. So you've given me some tools, and I'm
Hmm.
actually going away for 3 days on Monday to the ocean. So that'll be a great place for me to just
Oh,
kind of
yes.
let loose and do some grounding and get into my creativity. So
Yes, I wish you all the best.
thank you, Frederick. And thank you all for joining us today. I'm sure you've got a lot out of this conversation. I know I did. So we will see you next week. If you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do so. It's Tina Marks TV. And it'll also be on my podcast on Apple and Spotify. That is under Transparent with Tina. So we will see you next week for another great conversation. Thank you, Frederick, for being here.
Thank you so much.